It was a cold and rainy night, around 11 p.m., when I found myself on my way home. The rain was pouring so heavily that I could barely see the road ahead. I decided it was best to take shelter and found a nearby 7-Eleven store. I wasn't the only one with the idea. Several others were already inside, waiting for the storm to pass. I figured a hot coffee might help warm me up while I waited, so I went to the cashier. The store was quiet, with no one else in line, so I struck up a casual chat with the guy behind the counter. We talked for about 10 minutes, just killing time. Then, a woman walked up to the counter to buy something, so I stepped aside to let them be. All the seats in the store were occupied by people eating or just waiting out the rain. I stood by the counter, sipping my coffee and watching the rain beat against the glass windows. Then, I heard the door chime as it opened. A young boy walked in, soaking wet. His clothes were shabby, dirty, and he looked like he had been out in the storm for hours. I thought he might be a homeless kid. I kept watching him, feeling a bit sorry for the poor thing, when he suddenly turned his head and looked straight at me. That's when I felt my blood run cold. The boy's eyes, something was terribly wrong with them. They were pitch black, as if the pupils had swallowed up everything else. They looked almost hollow, like empty sockets. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I strained my eyes, thinking it might be a trick of the light or my imagination. But no, his eyes were empty, dark voids staring right into me. I felt a wave of terror wash over me. I wanted to call out to the cashier or anyone nearby, but my voice caught in my throat. The cashier was still busy with customers, unaware of the boy or the fear gripping me. I stepped back, trying to break the boy's gaze. My heart pounded as I turned to a woman who was eating at a table. I pretended to ask her something, anything to distract myself. As I spoke, I glanced back at the door, hoping the boy had left. But he wasn't there anymore. I looked around the store, scanning every corner, but he was gone, completely vanished. I felt a chill creep up my spine. I looked at the other people in the store, trying to see if anyone else had noticed the boy, but they all seemed normal, calm. No one else appeared to be scared or even aware that something was wrong. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart. Maybe I had imagined it, I told myself. Maybe the stress of the night and the storm was playing tricks on me. The rain had subsided by then, so I decided it was time to leave. I threw away my coffee cup, walked out of the store, and got on the next bus home. But the image of those empty, black eyes stayed with me. Even as I sat on the bus, surrounded by people, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. When I finally got home, I locked the door behind me, still haunted by the memory of that boy. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, those dark, hollow eyes staring back at me. Even now, I can't forget. And sometimes, in the quietest moments, I wonder if I'll ever see him again. I took a job at a 7-Eleven during my last year of high school. The night shift, of all things. I wasn't thrilled about it, but money was tight, and I needed to help out at home. I've always been a bit sensitive to the other side. Hospitals, cemeteries, those kinds of places, I usually stayed away from. I never imagined that a 7-Eleven would end up being a place I'd need to avoid too. But there I was, stuck with the job for a few months, trying to make ends meet. It started on my first night. The store was mostly empty, as it usually was during those hours. From the counter, I could see into the stockroom. The door had a small glass window, just big enough to see through. I was counting change when I noticed something. Someone, a girl, peeking through the window, her face partially hidden behind the door frame. She had long dark hair, and her eyes, they were hollow, almost black. I blinked, and she was gone. I tried to shake it off. Night shifts mess with your head, right? But it didn't stop. Every night, the same girl would peek through the window, always just for a moment before disappearing. I tried to ignore her, focused on my work, but it was hard not to feel uneasy. Then there were the giggles. Soft, almost playful, like a child running behind me. I'd be doing inventory in the stockroom, trying to concentrate, when I'd hear it, a quick, light laugh. But the room was always empty. The first few times, I chalked it up to my imagination, maybe the stress of school and work getting to me. But it happened again and again, always when I was alone in that room. The worst part wasn't the giggling, though. It was the sound of running footsteps behind me, quick and light, like someone was darting around the room. I'd spin around, but there was never anyone there. The hairs on the back of my neck would stand up, and I'd force myself to keep working, pretending not to notice. I was terrified, but I didn't dare show it. I was afraid if I let on that I was scared, whatever was there would only scare me more. I kept my head down, avoided looking at the stockroom door, and tried to get through each shift without losing my mind. But there was one night I'll never forget. It was around midnight, and the store was quiet. A couple of customers were browsing the aisles, and I was behind the counter, trying to stay awake. We were low on a few items, so I had to go into the stockroom to restock the shelves. I dreaded going back there, but I didn't have a choice. As I approached the door, I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I reached out to push it open, but before my hand even touched the door, it swung open on its own. My heart nearly stopped. I stood there, frozen, trying to process what had just happened. The door had never done that before. It was heavy, old, and it took a good push to get it open. But it had just opened on its own, as if someone on the other side had pulled it open for me. I wanted to scream, to run out of that store and never come back. But the customers were still there, waiting for their items, oblivious to the terror gripping me. I didn't want to freak them out, or worse, have them see me freak out. So, I took a deep breath, swallowed my fear, and walked into the stockroom like nothing had happened. The room was colder than usual, and I could feel eyes on me, like someone was watching from the shadows. I quickly grabbed what I needed, avoiding looking around too much. The last thing I wanted was to see her standing in the corner. When my shift finally ended, I practically ran out of the store. I didn't look back, didn't want to see what might be there if I did. I quit the job a few weeks later, making up some excuse about schoolwork. I just couldn't take it anymore. To this day, I wonder who that girl was, why she was there. I've heard stories about spirits attached to places, unable to move on. Maybe that's what she was. All I know is, I'll never work another night shift again. Some things, you just don't mess with.